Hey everybody, here's a fun little update that no one asked for on my Wheat Special Battalion project in 28mm, specifically 3 companies of the 5 original companies. I mentioned this in the, I don't know what, the first video I think I ever posted, specifically on the Tiger Rifles, Company B, and the Walker Guard, Company A. Hello, kitty. And now I've finally been putting together the Delta Rangers, Company C. Look at that. These guys were issued Havelocks for their caps, and they have the same red overshirts, essentially the same uniform as the Walker Guard here, which is well on its way to coming to life. So one thing that's like super in the weeds that I've been going nuts on for these 3 companies are I've been at least modeling, well, painting the company commanders for each of these companies. So let's see, what do we got? We got Captain Robert Harris of the Walker Guard. Still a little bit to do on him. He's almost done. I don't know if it's ever going to focus on him, but you guys get the idea. He's got a sword, he's got a frock coat. So I mean, the Walker Guard had other officers, but for my game, Vortex of Hell, I'm just focusing on the company commanders, other than a couple other notable officers that are worth adding in for like a First Manassas specific scenario. And of note, there's Captain Alexander White of the Tiger Rifles here. He's an interesting character. He raised the Tiger Rifles. Originally, the Zouave Company, these guys were known as White's Tigers, which I'm sure I'm retreading old ground from my other video, but we've got White's Tiger Rifles, and then when they were incorporated into Wheat's Special Battalion, that name kind of took hold into the entire battalion, becoming Wheat's Tigers. But it was Alexander White who started that before they joined the battalion. And then along with White, we have Lieutenant Thomas Adrian. Adrian is an interesting character in the grand scheme of the battalion. He's wounded at First Manassas, not mortally at all. He actually survives the wound, and he finishes his service with the battalion until they're disbanded on August 9th, 1862. But in the summer of 1861, while he's with his company, Company B, and the battalion is charging forward again, he's wounded, and as he's laying on the ground, he is quoted as saying, as his men are moving past him, Tigers go in once more, my sons. I'll be great gloriously goddamned if these sons of bitches can ever whip the Tigers," which is just like such a mid-19th century, fuck you to the to the enemy. But it is also in the line of good leadership. You're laying on the ground, encouraging your men, assumably hat and cap in hand, waving your troops forward as they assault the Rhode Island infantry and the Rhode Island battery on Matthews Hill. It's a fun little story that no one needed to know, and now you do, because it's in my head forever, and it might as well be in yours for 2 seconds. Anyway, so those are the 2 notable officers, at least for now, for Company B. And then Company C, the Delta Rangers, we've got very newly from the mail, so he's primed by some old man 10 years ago, probably. But this is going to be Captain Henry Gardner. I'm going to do a little bit of fixing on this miniature. Actually, might even just change the miniature entirely. I think it's an old Glory miniature. It had like a 5th Corps badge on his cap. It's supposed to be a federal officer, but it's an interesting enough pose of a dude advancing alongside of his men here. The Delta Rangers, I had planned to have it in the same arms position as Company A, the Walker Guard. So they're all at like charge bayonet, advancing forward in line. What am I saying? Anyway, but yeah, so the pose is fine for now. I'll look through all my my bag of random Civil War officers and see if it's worth swapping him out. But I do kind of like that pose. It is very, it's matter of fact. I'm advancing with my men. And then one of the other really most notable, well, in my mind, most notable battalion officers or company grade officers would have been Lieutenant Austin Eastman, who actually carried the flag at 1st Manassas. They had a very unorthodox configuration for their colors. Specifically, it's very, I mean, this is another tangent. I'm really sorry. Each of these 3 companies brought a flag with them to their service in some way or another. So, they were they were made for them by someone. I'm not sure, if it was like ladies' aid societies, or they Captain White may have commissioned the flag for the Tiger Rifles, for example. There's no evidence as to where they got these flags from. But that being said, of the 5 companies in the battalion, when we organized them, 3 of them went to war with their own company flag, which is extremely unorthodox and not usual, not regular. I would be very, very, very surprised if at any point all of these flags were physically carried on flagpoles with each company, because that's just not how battalions were formed. So before they joined Wheat Special Battalion, when they formed their companies, they easily could, they would have formed a color guard like this here of 9 men on the left side of the company for, fun little formations and parades or whatever. But when the whole battalion is formed, all 5 companies are formed in, line of battle like this. The color company, which would be Company C, the Delta Rangers here, they would be in the center, so they were the center company. And it wasn't until 1st Manassas that the Delta Rangers flag was chosen to be the battalion flag. So I'm not sure what was going on before the middle of the summer in 1861. It's early war weirdness, but this is really, I may have mentioned this in the other video, but the Walker Guards certainly never carried their banner, which was a dark blue. It was like a silk flag with a white crescent in the center, which denotes New Orleans very often. And the Tiger Rifles, although depicted almost always as, well, just the battalion in general, but depicted as the color company, there's always guys, models for the Zouave company. They're always depicted as having a stand of colors, which is like this ridiculous Louisiana state flag. This battalion never carried the Louisiana state flag. The Tiger Rifles, they carried either a blue or a green silk flag. I'm not really sure which color, because it doesn't exist and hasn't existed since the summer of 1861, most likely. But it had a lamb on it, and it with the words "as gentle as," or "gentle as," a lamb on this flag. This does not matter, other than the fact that they didn't carry these. So it's not even worth mentioning, other than the fact that they had them, they just didn't carry them. So the Company B did have a flag. It was just not a flag that is ever really depicted. And they never carried it in battle, because they were a flank company of the battalion. So they would be positioned on the left or right of the battalion. I don't know. I'm assuming that they were on the left of on the right of the battalion. Captain White seemed to be a senior officer amongst these men, and very often the senior company grade officer would have his company on the right of the battalion. This is so much information when you came here for toy soldiers. Anyway, they were deployed as skirmishers very often, and there would be no rhyme or reason to have a flag with them. That being said, in the center company of the battalion, the Delta Rangers here, they did carry their flag, and a lieutenant carried the flag. So yeah, Lieutenant Austin Eastman carried the flag. Now this miniature here is a regular Confederate enlisted guy. He had sergeant chevrons on that I shaved off. I'm going to convert this and make his jacket into a frock coat, and then I'm gonna add a sword hanging from his sword belt here, and I think that'll I'll sell it a little bit, you know, maybe sculpt a little belt buckle. And I'll probably either swap his head or chop this slouch hat off and give him a kepi. Maybe even with a Havelock to match his guys. He would have been able to wear whatever cap or hat he wanted historically. So it's kind of, the world is my oyster as far as however I want to depict him. The company grade officers in Wheat Special Battalion, like any other officer during the American Civil War, outfitted themselves, and they obviously Company B opted for a Zouave uniform. They either wore blue jackets, like some shorter jackets, or blue frock coats like that, red trousers, red cap. Wheat, Major Robideau Wheat himself opted to wear that uniform, which is coincidentally a Louisiana militia officer's uniform. Red trousers, blue frock coat, red cap. I think Beauregard also wore or had a similar uniform. I'm not sure if he wore it. Anyway, so yeah, company grade officers were a little more subdued than the Company B guys. Although there's a really good chance, because the Louisiana state, you know, militia officers' caps were prescribed to be, it was like red or blue, I forget. There were probably some other red kepis in the mix of company officers. Anyway, this is kind of where I'm at with these guys. The Delta Rangers here primarily have Havelocks, like I said. So they've got the red, they'll have the red shirt, the salt and pepper, you know, dark gray trousers, basic equipment. They'll have the tin canteens, off-white or white Havelocks, which is just like a cotton, you know, head covering. It's like, you know, usually people think of like the French Foreign Legion when they see these things in later periods. And it was ideally used, in theory, it was used to keep the sun off your neck and, you know, cool the soldier a little bit. It also just looks cool, and it was a nice way to like keep uniformity in these early war companies like this, where being uniformed with a, you know, proper head to toe like gray suit or blue suit or something like that wasn't necessarily possible. So unlike, you know, the rare case of Company B where they have like straight up, you know, head to toe uniforms, issuing out like these red shirts, the gray trousers, and then sometimes like for different companies, various headgears, it helps keep them a little more uniformed. One other cool thing to note for this project is that I'm going to be, so the color guard this is kind of like a stand-in right now. These guys are Perry's, like, you know, it was like soldier, like men in shirts advancing with various headgear. Color guards normally were pulled from different companies in the battalion. So I'm gonna have a couple of these guys with like, most of them, if not all of them, have slouch hats on right now. This guy's got like a Mexican War era like wheel cap on, which I don't know, it's kind of out of the norm. But if one guy in the battalion has one on, I'll paint it as like a civilian cap. Anyway, I digress. But a lot of these guys have slouch hats on. I'm gonna convert 3 probably of them to have a kepi with a Havelock, so they match these guys. But yeah, this color guard would have been, in theory, now once again, Wheat Special Battalion is a very, very strange case during the Battle of First Manassas. But in theory, these 9 men would have been pulled from various companies from the battalion. So I might paint one of these guys up as a Catahoula guerrilla soldier, so one of the other companies, or a member of the Rough and Ready Rangers. And both of those companies, of course, I chose the 3 companies that, you know, are obviously the most outlandish early war looking ones. The Catahoula guerrillas and the Rough and Ready Rangers were most likely wearing like short jackets, like just regular jackets and matching trousers, and this, you know, same, you know, various civilian headgear and gray caps. The Catahoula guerrillas were originally, I think their original plan was to be a cavalry company, and that just didn't come to fruition. So it'd be cool to have some guys in riding boots for them if I ever make them. This is way off course, but all I have to say is I think I'm gonna have random guys from at least these 2 companies mixed in here, which is obviously, it's gonna be the same uniform, just some varying headgear, and maybe like one guy is a Catahoula guerrilla. I probably won't add any Tiger rifles into the color guard. A, because I think it'll be like jarring to just have like one random Zouave. It'll look like a reenactment. like it'll look like a reenactor company of weirdos if it's like just one random Zouave in a battle line. It's a real look at me, you know, pick me kind of reenactor syndrome thing. So, but also Company B, so these guys here that I'm working on, Company B, like I said, they were deployed as, they were like, you know, flank company, a skirmishing company, and I think that it will just look more cohesive on the tabletop if they're all together. Man, I'm having fun with these guys. I've been repainting. This is like, I wish I should have taken a photograph. This is one of the first ones I ever converted / painted. It was whatever year the Perry Zouave box came out, I started converting tigers, and it sucks because 2 or 3 of these guys were those original paint schemes from whatever, how many, every 10, 12, 800 years ago that I started them. Here's one that you can mostly see. I've repainted as pantaloons already. You can get the vibe. I was just trying to go with, well, my, you know, very bad paint jobs, but yeah, like I was trying to go with like the bringing blankets from home look for these ones. So I converted some bedrolls on them. They don't look good, but I don't want to, I kind of don't want to take them off because now they are history in and of themselves of my collection. Here's some of like really early Tyler Green stuff work where this was just like a, I don't know, random bad Civil War miniature that I green stuffed pantaloons on him, aka I just blobbed it apparently over his trousers. So yeah, it's pretty fun, but I'm going back. I'm keeping some of these guys though in the final product because they're like I said, a history of themselves of my progress on this. So there's I think 4 or 5 miniatures that are from the OG iteration of these little fellas. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the cohesiveness of this. It'll be the first time that these guys are depicted this accurately and at this scale on the tabletop that I've seen. And I've seen most things about this battalion, annoyingly. So yeah. Anyway, I'm pretty stoked. I know that wasn't a very exciting video. Not a lot of moving parts. You're literally just staring at, I don't know, what, 60, 70 miniatures right here that I'm slowly painting, but I'm hoping to have the Company A guys done obviously first. They're the furthest along. There's a lot of just base coats and whatnot right here so far, but I mean, you've seen well, there is another video I made of painting this uniform, so you can get the vibe from right here. I still need a lot of work to do, but I'm batch painting them all at once, which is daunting. Usually I try to batch paint like 5 to 10 at a time, but doing 20 guys at a time has been intense. Well, 19, I guess, because this guy's already done and the officer's almost done. And then yeah, these guys, they need everything. I need to clean them up. I just got these from an eBay lot, which is pretty cool because I bought these with like a bunch of other like junk Civil War 28 mil guys. And originally it was a pile of lead miniatures, and that was like, it's like Civil War soldiers, you know, whatever, $30. And I was like, well, I saw like 4 guys in the Havelocks in this pile, and I was like, oh shit, that's that Perry set I've been wanting to grab to see if it would work for the Delta Rangers. And, you know, for all intents and purposes on the Perry website, it looked great. And I couldn't see the back of the miniature, but I'm pretty sure they had flat, you know, tin drum canteens. So it was kind of a shot in the dark because A, I saved on a lot of shipping from Perry. But B, I grabbed these and like 20, 30 other miniatures, but I didn't realize how many guys came. I thought it was maybe gonna be like a set of the 6 Perry guys, and then it ended up being 3 full sets. And then I kind of grabbed random guys in the slouch hats just to add a little bit of variation in headgear, just because some guys would assumably be rocking slouch hats, or even if they weren't issued them. Anyway, I keep going off on crazy tangents because whenever I talk about this battalion, I just unload, and I don't know why, it just happens. Anyway, so yeah, this was like a really happy accident because I've got essentially the full company here, plus the color guard now. yeah, so I'm stoked on this. I'm really excited. I'm gonna base these guys here soon and get them primed how I usually prime them, and then yeah, probably start on them when I finish them. And I've been going like every couple steps on them, I'll go to one of these guys and paint stripes on his pants, because it is a lot to do. Anyway, thanks everybody. Thank you for like and subscribe, and thank you so much, and tell your mom and everyone. Thank you to all my Patreons. Without you, nothing. Thank you.